There was a hush that pervaded the night, the type of silence that caused every footfall to reverberate. Maria, who was a single mother of 2 children, ran along the poorly illuminated street while carrying a multitude of goods in her arms. After working a double shift at the hospital, all she wanted was to go back to her children because she was exhausted. However, destiny had other things in store for us. There were 3 people that emerged from the shadows. They were tall and broad-shouldered, and their faces were concealed by hoodies. A brute with a jagged scar across his face, the leader moved up and took the initiative. Her children's medication was tucked away in the shopping bag she was carrying, his keen eyes fixed on them, and he did not flinch in response. "Who in the heck are you? Who is this hero exactly?" His famous black suit from John Wick was not there. Rather, he was wearing little more than a leather jacket and basic trousers. But what about the way he exudes? The very definition of peril. "I beg you." "I don't have much," she said in a low voice. With a clatter, the knife fell to the ground. "Nice bag," he sneered as he looked at her handbag. "John Wick." The leader, who had become pallid, stutteringly said, "Hand it over and maybe we won't make this ugly." Maria felt her heart pounding. While he was reaching for her, the bandit laughed. However, before his fingers went so far as to touch her arm, he not only led her to a taxi, but he also paid the driver in advance and loaded her groceries into the vehicle. "I have no idea what my life would have been like if you had. I think you should walk away." Suddenly, a voice that was composed yet authoritative sliced through the tension like a razor. They whirled around in circles. The actor Keanu Reeves was seen with his arms folded and leaning against a lamppost, but there was no one on the street. In particular, if he has the appearance of Keanu Reeves, what had just taken place was unbelievably shocking to her. Suddenly, she found herself staring into the icy eyes of a thief, and then immediately after that. After a fight, he was not the type of person to linger. He had too many questions and too much attention. But as he rounded the bend, he became completely still. The appearance of Keanu Reeves was quite reminiscent of a scene from a film. The leader of the thug laughed. By pushing off the lamppost, Keanu was able to walk into the shining light. It is nothing more than a man who dislikes being bullied. Following a brief exchange of looks, the thugs erupted in fits of laughing. It was a jeer that said, "This guy is serious." Inside was a single photograph of a little girl, no older than 10, with big, scared eyes. "Well, let's just say she owes my company a considerable sum of money. And now she's vanished. It was a terrible error." Keanu made a move before they had a chance to respond. It was a haze of perfection. The first thug was thrown tumbling into a dumpster as a result of a spinning kick. The gentleman proceeded to say, "And we'll consider your debt to the high table. Settled." On the other hand, if there was one thing that he could not overlook, it was the fate of an innocent person. The second blow was a knee to the belly that Keanu delivered after catching his opponent's S-punch in midair, twisting, and then dropping him. With a furiously slashing motion, the leader drew out a knife. Keanu expertly avoided the blow, seized his wrist, and then crack-disarmed him with a technique that was so fluid that it seemed to have been scripted. The advice that Keanu gave was to stay down, and his tone was eerily calm. It was her phone that rang as she was sitting at the kitchen table. The number is not known. The guys moaned as they clutched their wounds and fumbled. "Dude, are you?" He cocked his head to the side. "It is not." On the other hand, you do not want to meet him either. After saying that, he went to Maria and extended his hand to her. "You okay?"
Ow.
In her eyes, tears began to fill up. "I am grateful." The head of Keanu was shaken. "Just get home safe." The goons hobbled away as the taxi drove away, making a solemn vow that they would never cross paths with a man who fights in such a manner again. Is that Keanu? It was just another guardian angel in a world that needed more of them, and he disappeared into the night-like darkness. My takeaway from this tale? Never, ever, ever underestimate the man who is hiding in the shadows. As she sat in the back of the taxi, Maria's hands continued to shake as she clung to her groceries. She took a quick look out the window, partly anticipating that he would still be standing there, keeping a watchful eye on her. When 2 masked people surged inside, wearing black military gear and raising silent weapons, Maria screamed and shielded her children from the oncoming assault. Individuals with expertise, they are not thugs on the street. Her late husband, Marco, had been a reserved accountant. Does anybody know whether he had been engaged in anything potentially hazardous? During this time, Keanu was making his way down the alleyway at a rapid pace, his hands tucked into the pockets of his jacket. A sleek black sedan was parked at the curb, and the window of the car, which was tinted, rolled down just enough to expose a set of eyes that were intelligent and calculated. You always did have a soft spot for damsels in distress, Mr. Reeves. Keanu's jaw became more tense. He recognized that voice. The rear door of the vehicle opened, and a well-dressed guy in his 40s got out, straightening his cufflinks. Vigio Tarasov sends his regards. Keanu breathed slowly. Not this again. Right now, I'm retired, he stated frankly. The guy grinned. Are you? Because that tiny show back there was very John Wick. Without hesitating, Keanu reached out and grasped her arm while his voice was frantic. Keanu's eyes darkened. What do you want? The guy took a silver case from his coat and flicked it open. Instead of doing that, he went back to Maria. Something was concealed by your spouse. There is something potent. These individuals will destroy the whole globe in order to get it. Her name is Elena, her mother. Underneath it, a thin encrypted hard drive was taped to the bottom of the container. He stowed the drive away just as the sirens in the distance began to sound. Keanu glanced at the picture, his fingers twitching. It seemed clear to him where this was headed. You find the mother? It is estimated that we have around 7 minutes until this position is compromised. The jaw muscle of Keanu flexed in response. That life was no longer a part of his existence. He was Vigo's ambassador, and he was standing in front of a window that reached from floor to ceiling, viewing the lights of the city behind him. The photograph was taken by him. When the guy re-entered the vehicle, he stated, "One last job," as he did so. Don't disappoint us, Baba Yaga. Keanu was left standing by himself in the neon-lit alley when the window rolled up and the automobile slid away from the scene. He switched his attention to the second person who was there in the room. A slim lady dressed in a white suit who was quietly drinking tea. One more time, he peered down at the photograph. What's the final task? What's more, in light of the fact that Keanu Reeves never fails to act morally. And that is precisely how we will catch him in the act. Maria arrived at her house and immediately greeted her children with a bare embrace, before putting them to bed. She paused for a moment before responding. Maria, you have to get moving. The guy who had rescued her was the one whose voice was recognizable. It's Keanu. Maria's children were represented by a single, pulsating red dot on a holographic map of the city that shimmered and flickered to life. Her body fluids became icy. What is it? To what end? Due to the fact that those individuals tonight were not simply random thieves, you were the one they were searching for. A resounding thump emanated from the entrance of the house before she could even answer. There was an attempt to break in by someone. Her breath caught in her throat. After then, there was a loud bang. The door suddenly shattered open. An explosion occurred within the door, sending splinters of wood flying all over the room. The leading invader hissed at Maria while holding her by the collar and asking, "Where is it?" "It is the ledger." Right now, Maria's thoughts were racing. Are you a ledger? Which ledger is this? It was before she could respond that she heard a resounding crash coming from the window of the kitchen. There was a person dressed in black that tumbled through the broken glass and landed in a crouching position. It's Keanu. The trespassers whirled around, their weapons flying at him, but they were moving too slowly. What a bam. Took 2 accurate bullets from Keanu's handgun to bring them down, before they could pull the trigger on their weapons. Maria let out a terrified cry as the guys fell to the ground, their guns crashing to the ground. We have to get moving. But my kids. I've got them. It's a fresh air. Upon turning around, Maria saw that an elderly guy dressed in a long coat was standing in the corridor while holding the hands of her children. Carl. Keanu seemed to be taken aback. The concierge of the Continental Hotel gave a little nod in response. It is time for the high table to mobilize. Keanu's jaw became more tense. He didn't inquire about how Karin discovered him, since the guy had his own methods. The hands of Maria trembled. Marco, he said if anything ever happened to him, to check his old chess set. Eyes of Karan became more acute. The Queen's Gambit. Almost immediately, Keanu began to move, and he flipped the coffee table over. Got it. As the youngsters approached the rear entrance, Karin escorted them there. It is the tunnels. Proceed. The hand of Maria was taken by Keanu. Remain with me. Moreover, no matter what occurs, you must continue to run. As the first black SUVs screamed into the street behind them, they disappeared into the darkness after a brief while. Meanwhile, in a penthouse located in a skyscraper, an Oxford shoe that had been polished began tapping anxiously on marble flooring. His phone began to buzz. "Mr. The asset has been purchased by the company," but Wick stepped in to help. The guy let out a sigh. "Of course he did," he screamed. "You promised that this would be clean," he said. The lady flashed a grin. "Oh yes, it must be." After putting her cup down, she clicked a button that was located on the desk. "Let the Baba Yaga come," she said in a low voice. "We'll be waiting."